Welcome to the Circuit of Success Podcast.
The Circuit of Success Podcast.
With your host, Brett
Gilliland. Brett Gilliland, Visionary Wealth Advisory.
The Circuit of Success Podcast. Let's start the show.
Welcome to the Circuit of Success. I'm your host, Brett Gilliland. Today, I've got Tony Martignetti with me. Tony, how are we doing today?
I'm doing great. It's so good to be here.
Awesome. You got Big Boston calling in from Boston. We just talked a little bit about the weather, but, your Boston Red Sox got us. I remember like it was yesterday, 2004, 2013, World Series for the St. Louis Cardinals, Boston Red Sox. Yeah. Any thoughts?
Yeah, it seems like a distant memory to me now, but I do remember, like, for us, it was such a big deal. You know, we had such a long run of like nothing happening, and then this wonderful moment. And now
yes.
We've had quite a run, that not really good memories. So
that's what we're the same right now. But yeah, I remember I was sitting in my seats 2004. So gosh, that's hard to believe. That's 21 years ago, isn't it? Sitting there and, game 4, we're getting blown out as again for the sweep, and the game's over. You guys stormed the field. Well, right next to me, I literally about bumped into him. Jimmy Fallon and Drew Barrymore come running down the aisle right next to me. They hopped the fence. They went onto the field, and they started kissing. I'm like, what is going on right now? And little did I know they were making the movie, and they already finished it, and they had to come back and redo it in the ending since they won the World Series. So that was a pretty cool experience.
That's awesome. Yeah.
I was like, I didn't know they were that big of fans. But, we'll dive into all the stuff that you've got going. You are a leadership advisor, a best-selling author, podcast host, and a speaker. 30 years plus in business, helping business leaders all over the country, probably all over the world. And you are the host of the Virtual Campfire podcast and the author of 2 books, Climbing the Right Mountain and Campfire Lessons for Leaders. So before we dive into all that great stuff, Tony, what has helped make you become the man you are today?
It's a good question. One of the things that has helped me, especially, is just this curiosity that, I have, and this ability to ask more questions and to get more uncomfortable. And I think that's one of the things that is really driven me to be in this space that I'm in today, which, oftentimes I was in this journey of like, okay, keep on going up and up and up, and do the work to try and be at the highest level I could be. The reality is I had to stop that. I had to stop and be more curious about what's really, going on for me. What do I really want for life? And that's what got me where I'm doing right now.
Yeah. When you talk about the curiosity part, man, is that what sparked the podcast, or because I think that's a big deal, right? In business, to be curious and to want to learn and want to dive deeper with stuff.
Yes. And I will say that, and many other things too. I'll even say that it went far back even into my time when I was in corporate. I used to have these curiosity conversations that had led to new opportunities along the way, and just sitting down and asking people like, what are the things that got you into the work you're doing? And, what are some of the trends that you see in the work you do? And just wanting to understand other areas of the work they do. I worked in biotech for a lot of my career, but particularly I was in finance, and I'd always been curious about like, what do the clinical folks do? What are the people who are in different parts of the organizations I was working in? What makes them want to do what they do? And through that process, I would often get people opening up and sharing a lot more than I expected. And that led to more opportunities. I actually got an opportunity to work on a really cool program in China because of the fact that I just got myself into conversation with a person who gave me an opportunity.
Yeah, that's awesome. Talk about the chaos, that we can have. I know one of the topics you spend time on was calm in the chaos, right? And so how do we do that? How do we build some calm in our chaos of our everyday lives?
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that's really challenging is that chaos is it's all around us. And honestly, we can't remove chaos. What we need to do is be able to navigate it with more skill. And, one of the things that we can do is try to allow ourselves to create some space in the world we're in. it's not about creating more time for that, but it's more about how do we get some perspective by stepping away from all the chaos that's around us and look at it from a different perspective. One of the ways to do that is through curiosity. What's really going on here? And how can I look at it in a way that says, okay, what can I do in this space? And then the other part of it is connection. Who can I talk to? What can I learn from the people around me? What are they navigating that is different than what I'm seeing? And then the last part is compassion. Open to caring about the people around you, caring about what is their challenge that they're facing, and just letting them know that you're there and you want to help them navigate any challenges they're facing. People are going to look to you as a leader if you portray a sense of calmness in the face of all of this chaos. And the best way to do that is to get grounded back to these, 3 C's I just shared, the curiosity, connection, and compassion, and allowing other people to see that you're not freaking out, but instead allowing yourself to get grounded in this moment.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's key as a leader, right? I mean, if we freak out, we're all screwed then. But I think that what you talked about, that connectedness, I think is a big deal. Like I've done for years what I call an executive forum. And so I'll host other business leaders. We come in, it's been about anywhere from 6 to 7 people. And we're talking, this is like 10 or 15 years, probably, 15 years of doing this. Getting together once a month and just talking, and sharing business, kind of the war stories from business, if you will. And I found that to be extremely helpful. Have you been a part of something like that? You believe in something like that?
Yeah, I mean, so many of them. In fact, I think there's some of them have been good, some not so good. But I am always finding myself wanting to get into different communities, just for the sake of not just running ideas, but also running ideas by people and the challenges I'm facing, but also knowing that we do our best thinking with others, and I think it allows us to be able to bring people up to speed with what we're working on, and allowing them to say, hey, here's something I did, and here's how I looked at it. And, the more communities I get into, the more I see myself evolving to that next level. Yeah. So it really ups your game. And, what I've come to realize, not just through my own journey, but also through the people who I've come to interview on my show, is that nothing happens in a bubble. We need people around us to support us and to help us to raise to the next level. We need community.
What do you do in your world? Sorry, I was taking a note here. Looking at, to stay a student of the game, right? You got to be constantly evolving and getting better every day. And for me, it's journaling, it's reading, listen to podcasts, things like that. What is it that you do to stay a student of the game, to be at the top of your game?
Yeah, journaling is definitely a big part of it. So I definitely, try to take notes each morning of like what's coming up, what ideas are popping in my head, but also throughout the day too. I pause along the way and just say, hey, here's something that's coming up for me right now through this, maybe a coaching session or a meeting with some people that I want to explore deeper. And one of the other things that I think is taking that to a next level is that every week I have this thing called the weekly spark, which is a meeting with myself. I have a board meeting with myself that basically says, how was the last week? What did I learn? What are the things that I'm taking away from the past week? And then how am I planning the week ahead to ensure that I'm not just showing up to the week, but instead I'm intentionally designing the week. And so this week, the weekly spark is what I call it, has a few prompts and ideas that allows me to look at my calendar with more intention, but also allowing myself to reflect on where I've been and where I'm going. Yeah. And look at my goals with that in mind.
Yeah. Yeah. The daily goal thing's a big deal. I write my goals down every single day, the stuff I'm focusing on this 90 days. And then I spend my first 90 minutes focusing on that. So, totally agree with that. Talk about, thriving through change. there's constant change going on in the world today. So how do we thrive through that?
Yeah. Well, the first thing is to recognize that that change is happening with or without our desire to make it happen. Sometimes it's just thrust upon us. So we need to be able to say, okay, what can I control in this moment? I can control my reaction to the change, and slowing things down a bit, creating some space between what is happening and how I'm reacting to it is important. And so to thrive in change is to get perspective, and allow yourself to say, okay, how am I able to understand why this change is happening? And what is the outcome of what is going on here going to allow me to do? What is the opportunity? Oftentimes people think of the change and they get into a negative spiral of, oh gosh, like this change is happening. What am I going to do? How is this going to affect me? And instead, we could make that an upward spiral and say, what is this creating as an opportunity? What could come out of a change? And allow yourself to be more optimistic about what the outcome could create. And so I look at that as creating an opportunity to look at an obstacle as an opportunity. And change always creates an opportunity to create something.
When you think about the stuff that you do, so let's say you're standing on stage or you're doing your podcast, writing a book, whatever it may be, where do you find that fires you up the most, like in a good way, fires you up the most, to where, man, when you're doing this, time just stands still? Yeah.
Well, I love being able to create. I love art. I love doing artwork that is more connected to this idea of getting other people to see that they have the potential to create themselves. And oftentimes it's with people who have told themselves over and over again, oh, I don't have the capacity to do that. I don't have a creative bone in my body. And when I can sit with people and have them start to create something on their own through just helping them, with some prompts and some ideas, it just fills me up to see them start doing something that they never thought was possible through a creative medium. And whether that's painting, drawing, or even writing. I've done some things where I've had people create a poem through a few prompts.
So dive more into that, dive deeper into that. So give us some ideas, some prompts, maybe some strategies that we can get more creative with that.
Yeah. So one of the things that I do is I have them do like what's called a collective poem, where I first get them to think about what a conversation that they want to have with somebody that's called a meaningful conversation that they need to have. And I have them visualize what it would look like to have that conversation. What is it going to feel like? And they have a partner who they share it with in a facilitated conversation. And through this process, that person who's hearing them talk about this conversation that they're going to have draws out this conversation. What are they hearing from this person? What are the strengths that they're embodying as they talk about this important conversation? And when they reflect back on that conversation in the sharing, this person gets to feel more connected, not only to the person that they're sharing with, but also understanding themselves at a deeper level. So you think about that, it's happening on so many levels. It's a win for the person who's drawing out this conversation. It's a win for the person who's sharing the conversation. And ultimately, at the end, there's a connection to what are the strengths this person has. And through this process, what we do is we create a I am poem that creates what are the strengths they see through this person. So it's hard to visualize this until you actually do it, but it's a beautiful moment people create.
That is great. That's awesome. What about when the days where things maybe not going your way, right? And so think about either yourself, how have you dealt with this in business? Maybe the pitch didn't go your way, right? And what do you do to get through that to where you can maybe see things a little differently, look at the opportunity that comes from that? Tell me more.
Yeah. I mean, it reminds me of the classic adage, like, sometimes you have to collect no's to get to yes, or no lives in the land of yes. But I think that's a wonderful way to look at these challenges we face. Sometimes it's just not meant to be. And we have to be okay with taking some of those moments of the setbacks as fuel to get up and try again. And I've had a fair amount of setbacks in my life. And, one of the things that I do is just allow myself to say, what am I learning from this? What is the thing that I'm taking away from this moment that will allow me to look at the next thing as a way to do it better through the learning. If we're just failing and just saying, okay, well, that's, making excuses and just trying to, to see that they're wrong, not me, that's not going to help. But what I need to do is think about, what am I learning through this, and create a path forward. Of course, it always feels painful in the moment, and that's okay to feel that emotion, but you have to be able to say, okay, now it's time to do something with this.
Yeah. It can be painful in the moment. For me, it's sitting back with a journal and writing it out and say, okay, I got into this situation. I got into this thing. It doesn't have to be bad, right? It could be, holy crap, I got into this thing. This is amazing. Like, what can we do to do more? And just brainstorming, I find if I can sit down with an ink pen and a blank sheet of paper once a week and just think and dream and strategize and then build the plan around it. And then ultimately, all I have to do is take action. I shouldn't say all I have to do. That's probably one of the hardest parts, but you just got to take action, right? And that's one of the circuits on the circuit of success. So when you hear that word, just taking action, what's that mean to you?
Yeah, I love that you say that, because, there's a sense of like rumination is not helpful, right? And if we keep it in the head, it's not going to solve itself there. Instead, getting it on paper, giving it a physical form allows you to be able to say, okay, well, now I can figure it out. I can organize my thoughts around this and then do something with it. And I also, when you say taking action, it is so important that we do something, even if it's imperfect action. And I take a lot of imperfect action, that's for sure. We need to get out and try things, experiment, and see how they're going to land in the real world. If we just continue to think up ideas, to think of experiments in our heads, but don't do anything with it, we're never going to know for sure if they're real. So I think the best thing we can do is just get out and try. And it actually, I'll share a little tool I use with my clients, which is expand your vision and then narrow your focus, which is all about taking action. Expanding your vision is about, when you're feeling stuck, how can you get more expansive in your thinking? What are the things that are possible in this moment, instead of staring at the wall and saying, okay, well, I'm stuck. What else is possible? Get out and look bigger. And then the focus part is where you're able to say, what is the next thing I can try, and narrow in to that action step. And even if that doesn't necessarily get results, that's okay. At least you're trying. Yeah,
that's solid advice. I mean, that's really kind of similar to what I do, and it's every 90 days is put together the game plan of what I have to do first thing in the morning and follow that. Right. And you're not perfect. I always say it's progress over perfection, and try to get it done as many days as you can. Write it down first and then go do it. Right. And I think that's where I find the most success, is when I have the clear plan. This is no shock, right? But clarity precedes mastery. So if I've got a clear plan and I learn how to take action, I'm going to master it. And that's the thing. But there has to be, to your point, is focus. And the focus is writing it down every single day and then doing it. Right. That's where the power comes from.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, it's like, one of the things that we can't just sit around and say, like, why isn't it working? Why isn't this working? Well, what are you doing to actually make it work? And I think that's the problem, is some people just expect results to happen for them without taking action. It's not going to work. So.
Not happening. Talk about some of those books back there, man. You got a lot of books I see in your background there. Are you a big reader, I take it?
I do. I read a lot of books, and I listen to a lot of books. And for me, it's not like you have to read everyone to from front to back. I take what I can from the books I read, and then I put them down when I got what I need. I need to learn that. I'm this
creature of like, if I started, I got to finish it. I was the king of, in 2016 is when I started reading 10 pages a day. And, you know, so like this morning it was easy. It was like, I think I read 16 pages this morning. Some days it's hard to read 10 pages. And, but it's the habit of doing it, right? And I hear from so many people, I just don't have time. I just, you know, we got to make time, number one. And number two, nobody has that much going on that you can't find time to read 10 pages in a day. That's it. That's all we're asking, right? It's a simple thing. But I just find there's so much power in it, is spending time with the book and reading day in and day out. Do you have a process for that, or is it just whenever you can do it, or are you pretty much the same time every day type guy?
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty much the same time every day. And what I've also found is that I will do like an Audible book when I'm, you know, doing a morning walk with my dogs. And that way it's like I'm doing like a 3 for getting exercise with, you know, spending time with my dogs and getting some reading in, if you will. That's right. So it's a nice way to get a lot in all at once.
I call that no extra time, you know? So anything I can do, like if there's certain things that I have to do when I'm going to be driving, I try to schedule it during that time when I'm driving. It's not going to take any extra time off my calendar. And so that's always a kind of a hack, if you will, of things to be efficient. So talk to us about your 2 books, Climbing the Right Mountain and Campfire Lessons for Leaders.
Yes. So Climbing the Right Mountain was my first book, and it was a book that just was calling my name. And it was just from all the conversations that I was having with people when I first got started, is this realization that a lot of us just get on the path of doing the work, you know, getting into our careers, and all of a sudden finding ourselves like, okay, you know, what else is there? Like, you know, what is it that I'm actually seeking? And oftentimes our definitions of success have been defined by other people. And so this book was a call to, you know, really question, you know, how am I defining success? What is fulfillment to me? And Climbing the Right Mountain is really about just checking in with yourself and saying, okay, what is the mountain that I want to be on, as opposed to just continue to blindly climb. And in there, I just, you know, share some tips for how people can look at their perspective of their climb in a different way. So
perspective, it's a big deal.
Yes. Exactly. And I'm also a climber. So there are some mountain analogies in there for sure that are important to me.
Where do you climb?
Well, I've climbed quite a few different mountains all over the place. But the biggest one was Kilimanjaro, which was about 2 years ago now, probably 3 years ago now. 3. And that was 19,000 feet, which was quite an undertaking. So. And
talk us through that. And that's like legitimate climbing. Like you fall, like you're toast. I mean, obviously you got your ropes and all that stuff, but it's not just like a hike. I mean, we're talking climbing mountains.
No, I mean, it's definitely, you go through, 6 different climates. So it's between, cold in the snow. But you're also climbing in days, where you're in the middle of the forest, and the desert climate of tundra, and it's hot, cold, everything. And the oxygen levels are really, really low. So at near the peak. So you definitely are challenged, not just physically, but also mentally, and your ability to just stay focused and sleep at night is really hard. So there's a lot of things that go into it, but that climb is one. There's also I've climbed the Alps in Switzerland and in Germany, and I've also had some challenging climbs just locally here in New Hampshire and Maine. So,
wow. What got you into that?
I've always loved nature. I've always been into just exploring different parts of nature, and mountains are just natural for that. You just love, there's a love for just seeing what's out there. Yeah. So
if you were me, it's funny we're having this conversation. I've thought about, actually sent a text to buddy Tim about this. If you were me, I don't know how to climb, right? So I'm not looking to climb and use the ropes where I got to go off the side of a cliff and go up it, but something that you can hike, but is yet really challenging and just absolutely stunningly beautiful. in America, where would you go?
Yeah, it's a good question. There's so many. I mean, it's just like, it all depends on where you are. But I would say the one that I like to go to is Mount Washington. Is just a wonderful climb. That's in New Hampshire, so it's a good place to go if you like something challenging. The interesting thing about Mount Washington is that, even in the middle of the summer, you'd expect it to be, really a nice climate at the top, but it could be snowing in the middle of the summer. So,
how tall is that one? Do you know off the top of your head?
I don't. It's definitely, I think it's about 5,000 feet.
Okay. Okay. And that's one I can just walk.
Mostly, yes. Yeah.
And how long is that going to take me?
It's going to take you, you could do it in a day.
Okay.
So, but it's going to be, it's not going to be like a, kind of an easy climb. So,
right. I'm just not rappelling on the side of a cliff. That's awesome. Well, man, where can we send our listeners to find more of you?
Well, the best place to start is ipurposepartners.com, and that's I as in the letter I. ipurposepartners.com is my website, and if you go there, you can learn more about my books. You can learn about you can take my assessments, and you can also learn about a program that I offer to a bunch of my organizations and companies I work with called Campfires of Connection, which is about creating deeper connections inside organizations so they can innovate more successfully. Awesome. And you can also find me on LinkedIn as well.
Okay. We'll put all that in the show notes, Tony. I really appreciate your time and really appreciate you being on the Circuit of Success.
Thank you so much for having me.